For what feels like forever, the Canadian housing market has been this runaway train, right? Just completely out of control. But lately, it's like someone slammed on the brakes hard. So the big question is, what happens next? Are we talking about a gentle slowdown, or is this a full-blown correction? Well, today, we're going to dig into an expert forecast that tries to look ahead to 2026 and give us some real answers.
Yeah, this is really the question, isn't it? Is 2026 going to be some kind of major reset for housing in Canada? To even begin to answer that, we've got to look backwards for a second. We need to understand what's been holding the market back recently.
So, before we can look forward, let's look back. It turns out there were two major things, two big drags really, that were basically holding the entire market hostage. And understanding these two factors is the key to unlocking this whole forecast.
And listen to this. According to Philip Soper, the CEO of Royal LePage, there was one thing in particular that he called the single biggest drag on housing activity. Now, you might think he's talking about interest rates, right? But nope. In fact, he said rates were actually becoming more supportive. So, what was it?
Believe it or not, it was all about trade and tariffs. That uncertainty just made people, well, nervous. And when you're worried about the economy as a whole, are you really going to make the biggest purchase of your life? Probably not. That hesitation, that anxiety is estimated to have knocked home prices down by something like 2 to 4%. That's a huge impact.
Okay, so that's drag number one, consumer jitters. The second one is really interesting. Soper calls it tenant disappearance. Sounds a bit traumatic, I know, but it's actually pretty straightforward. We saw a dip in immigration, in temporary workers, and foreign students. And what does that mean? Fewer renters. All of a sudden, if you're a condo investor in a big city, you're looking around going, where did all my potential tenants go? The math just wasn't adding up anymore.
All right, so we had those two big drags holding things back. With that in mind, where are we today? Well, the experts are calling this a balanced market. It's a term you hear a lot, but what does it actually mean?
Basically, a balanced market is just a return to normal. For decades, the historical average for home price increases in Canada was under 5% a year. That's it. All that crazy double-digit growth we've seen, that was the weird part. That was the exception. So this is really just the market getting back to its long-term predictable rhythm.
So, what does this return to normal mean for you? Well, if you're a homeowner, it means stability. Your home's value isn't on some wild, terrifying roller coaster anymore. But honestly, the really big story here is for buyers, especially first-time buyers. For the first time in ages, there's breathing room. You can actually negotiate. You can put conditions on an offer. Imagine that. You can make a thoughtful decision without getting immediately blown out of the water by a crazy bidding war.
Okay, let's get to the main event, the 2026 forecast itself. What is it actually predicting? Now, the most important thing to get your head around is that this isn't one simple single story for the whole country. It is absolutely a tale of two different markets.
So, if you look at the big national picture, the aggregate forecast, prices are expected to go up by just 1%. Basically flat. But hang on, because that simple number is hiding what's really going on underneath. There are some huge details in there.
And here it is. This is that split I was talking about. It's a total divergence. Just look at these numbers. Detached homes, they're actually forecast to go up 2%. Meanwhile, condos are expected to drop 2.5%. I mean, they're literally moving in opposite directions. It's like two completely different markets being pulled apart by those pressures we mentioned earlier.
And it's not just about housing types. There's a geographic split too. The big hubs, think Greater Toronto and Vancouver, they're expected to keep softening. But the rest of Canada, most other places are actually forecast to see some modest growth. And what that creates is something the experts call compression. It means that huge, massive price gap between the big cities and everywhere else starts to shrink. It starts to normalize it.
So, what's the wild card here? What's the final piece of the puzzle that could change all this, for better or for worse? Well, it all comes down to one thing: government action.
See, if we want to see any real, lasting change when it comes to housing supply and affordability, it has to be a coordinated effort. It can't just be one level of government doing its own thing. You need municipal, provincial, and federal governments all pulling in the same direction.
And here's the good news, or at least the potentially good news. According to this analysis, politicians are saying all the right things. From City Hall all the way up to Ottawa, the policies being proposed, they seem supportive. They seem well thought out. But saying the right things is one thing, and actually doing them is something else entirely. So the ultimate question, the real nail-biter for 2026 and beyond, is this: can all those good ideas and supportive words
actually get turned into shovels in the ground? Because at the end of the day, that's what's really going to decide the future of Canada's housing market.